G'day hikers, and welcome to Hike the Highlands Festival YouTube channel. My name is Tom Wilson and I'll be your host today. We have a great topic today. What's new and exciting with hiking in Nova Scotia? Interest in hiking continues to hold after the increase in from the pandemic, and there are several new initiatives and developments as a result. And we're pleased to have with us today Janet Barlow, the Executive Director of Hike Nova Scotia. Janet joined Hike Nova Scotia board back in 2007 and eventually became their Executive Director. She has over 25 years working in the Nova Scotia's nonprofit sector in project management, policy development, outdoor recreation, active transportation, nature education, and hiking and trails. Hike Nova Scotia encourages and promotes a growing hiking culture through our great province. Welcome, Janet.
Thanks for inviting me. I'm happy to be here for the Hike the Highlands Festival, and I do have my shirt on, as you can see. So what I'll do is I'll just go over what Hike Nova Scotia is all about in case there are folks who aren't familiar with us, and then we'll get into the real meat or the tofu of what we're going to talk about, which is what's kind of new and exciting in the hiking world in Nova Scotia. So Hike Nova Scotia is a provincial nonprofit, and we're just all about trying to grow a culture of hiking in our province. We already have a fairly established hiking culture, but we're trying to get more people to come out. So we're basically the voice of those who hike, walk, and snowshoe. Now we also try to be the voice for those who build and maintain hiking trails, since if you're going to hike them, then we need actual good trails to hike on. Now, we don't own or build trails ourselves, but we have lots of member groups who do, so we try to support them. And we're just really about trying to get people out on the trails, doing promotion, education, and motivational programs to try to get people out there. We are member-based, and if you become a paid member, then you get lots of perks and discounts. We also have a website and social media that are great resources on hiking events and information and trails and so on. So what's new and exciting in the hiking world in Nova Scotia? Well, we've got a new hiker challenge badge that's based in Cape Breton, so that's fun. We've got our new Trail Builders Network. We've got some pretty good membership numbers and participation numbers coming from the Cape Breton Highlands National Park as well. And I want to tell you a little bit about the Seawall Trail a little bit later on as well. So as far as COVID-19 and the pandemic is concerned, we, most restrictions, pretty much all restrictions as they pertain to hiking have been lifted. And so we don't have to worry about that so much, but we do have to be mindful. When we're out on the trails and in crowded areas, we all want to take precautions, those that we're comfortable with, but always keep in mind public health guidelines and protocols. So Hike Nova Scotia, we work in a number of different areas. So I'll give you some updates on those various things as a result of the last year, which has been pretty, it's been pretty active. The numbers that we saw increasing in the first pandemic year seem to have sustained over the last pandemic year. So Hike Nova Scotia works in the area of policy and advocacy, so working at the provincial level with decision makers and so on. So we ran our Speak Up for Trails campaign during the August 2021 provincial election. And so that was all about trying to get trail issues and hiking issues on the radar of all the candidates. And so we felt that went pretty well. We also ran in February of 2022 the Love Our Trails campaign, or the hashtag Love Our Trails NS campaign. And that was to get our new slate of MLAs because of the summer provincial election. That was to get those MLAs up to speed and connecting with the idea of trails and hiking. And so it was just inviting them to go out on the trails and take pictures. And out of the 55 or so MLAs, we had about a dozen of them come out and take pictures and post them online. And we also had one of those people present to the entire PC caucus about this initiative of Love Our Trails and Hike Nova Scotia. So that was pretty exciting to get that, that kind of FaceTime, I guess, with decision makers, which is always important. We had our fall and winter guided walk series, mid-September through to November, and then mid-January into mid-March. And we had about 51 events between those two series. Over 725 people came out. We had 29 different partners partner with us to lead those hikes on the ground. So that was pretty exciting. And here's a few nice photos, examples of those events. We have our hiker challenge. And so we have, these are badges that you can earn. And after, over the course of a year, you hike in a particular place or you hike a certain distance, and then you can earn the badge. And we have about 5 of our core Hike Nova Scotia challenges, but then we started having municipalities or organizations or parks come to us and say, hey, we want you to do a badge with us. And so right now we have about 8 additional badges, and we have at least 2 to 3 more coming, and then more after that, which is pretty exciting. So one of our new ones down sort of on the upper right hand corner of your screen would be the Cape Breton Waterfalls badge. So that was just developed in partnership with Destination Cape Breton, so the Cape Breton Tourism Organization. And it coincides with their waterfall season promotion that they started this past spring. So if you visit, I believe it's 6 waterfalls on this big long list of waterfalls you could choose from, then you can earn that badge. So that's kind of fun. And we are about to launch September or October, we will launch the Cape Breton Highlands National Park badge as well. So that's pretty exciting. So lots of badges and lots of challenges to take on. And our partner on the Hiker Challenge is the Trail Shop, and we're also supported by the government of Nova Scotia on that too. And in the last fiscal year, I just want to say that out of our 13 badges in total, we had about 525 badges earned over the course of the year. So that's nothing to sneeze at.
That's good.
Yeah, so we also have our NS Walks program, and that's all about creating weekly walking groups. Now, these aren't hiking clubs. These are weekly walking groups for people who are less active and who probably want to walk outside more in their neighborhood, in, like close to town, that kind of thing. They might be walking on a trail, but they might be just walking in a subdivision or on sidewalks. And we provide free walk leader training. So we have over 40 weekly walking groups in action right now. And we're always looking for more participants, always looking for more leaders. And we have almost monthly leader training sessions. And those are just, a morning long online virtual training that you can take. And then we also had Walk Day on May 11th, and we had 60 events across the province that involved over 300 people. So that was kind of fun too, just celebrating the idea of walking. So that's NS Walks. We also offer our courses, workshops, and webinars. So we've got all kinds of courses, especially through the Outdoor Council of Canada, which is a key, very important partnership that we have with them. So we have our Field Leader Hiking course, which was what I call the Hike Leader course. We have Navigation, Maps, and Compass. And then various offshoots of those courses. We've got our Reconnecting with Nature workshop that teaches adults how to engage kids with nature. And then we also have a whole bunch of webinars that we started offering. Probably every 6 weeks to 2 months, we'll offer our Intro to Hiking webinar. And then we've got additional webinars like Intro to Snowshoeing, Intro to Birding, Intro to Geocaching, Leave No Trace, Happy Hiker Feet, you name it. We've got all these great topics, and we're getting lots of people coming out to those webinars. We've got the International Appalachian Trail. So that's a continuation of the famous Appalachian Trail. It crosses the border into Canada, goes into New Brunswick, Quebec, PEI, Nova Scotia, and Newfoundland. And so the section that is in Nova Scotia goes from Caribou to the Causeway, hops the Causeway, goes the western side of the island, then over to North Sydney, where you can hop on the ferry and go to Newfoundland. So that's the IAT, we call it. We've got our new Trail Builder Network. And so this is all about supporting those trail groups, First Nations, municipalities that build and maintain the beautiful trails that we as hikers like to hike on. So we wouldn't have a very good experience if we didn't have these great groups out there, not only building, but maintaining those trails on an ongoing basis. And so Hike Nova Scotia, originally, when we first started, we had supporting these groups in our original mandate. So we're trying to get back to that original mandate in addition to doing everything else that we're supposed to do. But you know, we really wanted to start giving them some support. There's not a whole lot of support for the trail builders out there these days. And so we really wanted to step up and support them in that. And so webinars, in-person workshops are what we're starting off with this year. We hope that in the next year or two that we'll be able to start a youth trail core program, getting young people to go out and help build and maintain trail. We hope once we get charitable status in a year or two to start the 100 Hikers Who Care Fund, where we can get people donating. We'll get a cache of funding that we can offer to a trail or two per year to help them maintain their trails. So that's the Trail Builders Network. We've got our hiking summit, of course. It's back. It came back this past June, so we had to miss it, of course, postponed it in 2020 and in 2021. But then the very hardy and dedicated group based out of Shetty Camp came together and offered it in early June. Great success, had almost 200 people there. And we're already planning for the 2023, can't believe I'm saying 2023 summit. And it's going to be in Antigonish, which is pretty exciting. I think a lot of people don't realize just how beautiful and how many beautiful hiking trails there are in Antigonish. Our co-hosts are going to be Kepik Mountain, along with the town and the county of Antigonish. So we're pretty excited about that. And this picture here is an aerial of Kepik. And the Seawall Trail, just wanted to let folks know, if you haven't heard already, about the Seawall Trail. So this is under development right now. It's been almost about 10 years or so that this has been in the planning stages. And it's all about building a world-class multi-day hiking trail along the coast and the cliffs in northern Cape Breton. Think up around the area of Meat Cove, that sort of area. Now, even though it's been under development for a while, it has hit some snags in terms of getting political support and support from government. And so the group and a lot of us who are in support of them are putting a call out to hikers, to groups, individuals, to lend your support, to tell government that this is something that's needed in Nova Scotia, especially in Cape Breton. There's a video you can watch. The website is there. Just Google Seawall Trail. It's seawalltrail.com. Watch the video, and then you can copy and paste the verbiage to send by email to your MLA or the Premier or whoever it might be. But we really want to see this trail become a reality. And so hopefully, you know, maybe a piece of this trail might in future years be a subject of the Hike the Highlands Festival. You never know.
I hope so.
And then membership. So Hike Nova Scotia is membership based. I mentioned that before. And last year I showed you this when I did this presentation last year, I showed this graph, and it shows the growth of our membership. And this, in that first year of the pandemic, we had almost 20% growth in our membership. And I think that was indicative of the trend generally, people getting outdoors, nothing else to do during the pandemic but go outside and hike. And I'm very happy to report that in this last fiscal year, 21-22, we saw a 16% increase in membership. So it went from 19 as a high to 16. It's not quite as high as that first year of the pandemic, but it looks like it's sustaining, which is really encouraging. And with all of the programming that Hike Nova Scotia is doing, we're seeing an increase in participation in most of our programs. We're seeing an increase in the number of emails and phone calls that we're getting to ask about hiking, or we're seeing general increase in like social media engagement as well. So it's good. It's the interest in hiking and the outdoors in general seems to be holding, and maybe not plateauing, but it's still going up a little bit. So that's really great to see from my perspective. And this is reflected as well. There's an article that came out in I think mid-August about Parks Canada, and they are on track to have numbers this year that will meet or maybe even exceed the numbers they saw visiting the park the year before the pandemic, so 2019 numbers. So that's really great news. Of course, the first and second year of the pandemic, their numbers were lower, but they're on track to see similar, if not better, numbers. So that's as before the pandemic. So that's really great news. And it's even gotten to the point where they've had to close the Skyline Trail a few times because there were too many people trying to access it, parking lot full, and traffic issues. And a few other trails within the park have been experiencing that. So that's interesting. So just want to acknowledge some of our partners. So the province of Nova Scotia and the Trail Shop, we've got the Outdoor Council of Canada, the International Appalachian Trail, Leave No Trace Canada, and we've got all kinds of other partners. Without them, we couldn't do the work that we do. And of course, we've got lots of members. You can become a member. Like I said previously, you can get discounts and perks at outdoor retailers, accommodations, various businesses. You also get our monthly e-news, and you get discounts on our courses and events, like the summit, for example, webinars. And we have a lifetime member fee as well. You pay $200, and we won't bug you again for membership fees after that. You're a permanent member of Hike Nova Scotia. And then further to support us, we've got our t-shirts, our Hike Nova Scotia t-shirts, and we've got our solar lanterns as well. So that just purchasing one of those helps support our work on an ongoing basis. So that is that's my song and dance about Hike Nova Scotia.
Okay, so I've got a few questions for you. One of the things that concerns me a little bit is that I know that it's nice to see our numbers increasing, especially nonprofit groups where we're getting increased revenue to help us survive and move on to the next year. The thing that concerns me a little bit, and we touched on this last year, was that we may be increasing more people on the hiking trail, but is there any environmental assessments done to say that this trail can handle 3 times more numbers compared to the 2 years ago?
Right.
And that's why I thought that was a brilliant move to move ahead with the Trail Builders Network. Because right now, provincial government doesn't like to admit this, but they'll tell you they don't have the money or the resources to maintain their hiking trails. In federally national parks, they don't either. So if we keep moving towards more numbers, because a lot of times numbers are the only things that create budget changes,
Right.
and which is the wrong reason to be doing that. But anyway, I know that you got to play games both sides.
Mhm.
But I really think there's a trend that we need to become more sustainable in a way that we're not hurting the environment.
Yeah, I mean, that is, it's the chicken the egg argument. And on one level, it's a good problem to have where we're getting lots of people coming out. But then the other side of that coin is the fact that a trail, for example, one of the more popular trails near Halifax, where I live, is the Bluff Trail, and it sees a lot of people hiking that trail, but it's also seeing a lot of the impact. So whether it's trail weaving, or trail braiding, whether it's people cutting down trees and having fires where and when they shouldn't, um, shortcutting, all kinds of, erosion, water impacts as a result. It's just all kinds of issues that you have when you have a lot of people using a trail. Where it was designed probably thinking, oh, this is going to be a wildernessy footpath, and you know and all of a sudden you're seeing, not all of a sudden, but I guess over time you're seeing a lot more people than was originally imagined. And so what do you do? Well, there are a few things. So the increase in numbers, yeah, it does. We are able, if we're telling government funders especially, we're seeing a lot more people on these trails are having a lot more impacts, you need to give us more money, right? Like that is something that we can, that trail groups can tell a government and say, listen, we've got no, this is why we need this. There's all, making the case for why we need trails. I mean, I think we can, I'm not going to go down that road. It's pretty obvious to a lot of us. I mean, and the arguments are pretty plain. It's one of the most economical forms of recreation infrastructure out there. I mean, you could build a multi-lifestyle center with gyms and all this stuff and basketball courts, and I'm not slagging those, but if you want the biggest bang for your buck, probably a trail is one of the best things you can do. So, making the case, I mean, it's a no-brainer on one level, but it's just, where is government's going to come to you and say, well, where do you want us to cut in order to redirect money towards your trail, or give us a reason? Well, one of the reasons is we've got a lot more people using them. But then you've got the impact, and whether you're spending money on a trail or not, you're going to get impact regardless. You're going to get year after year ongoing maintenance issues. And so how do you handle that? And again, pointing to the Bluff Trail, which was built and maintained by the Woodens River Watershed Environmental Organization. Long name, also called RIO is the short name for it, but essentially it's the Bluff Trail Group. And they have a really interesting program. It's their trail stewardship program. So they teach volunteers how to go out and not really patrol a trail, but they kind of have times when they'll go out on a trail and look for where there might be the beginnings of some trail braiding happening. Maybe maybe there's a fire pit that was created. They'll dismantle a fire pit, try to make the area look like it's come back to its natural state. Maybe chatting with people on the trail about how to better leave no trace. But their trail stewardship program, they've done a really good job of recruiting volunteers, and then those volunteers are out there keeping watch and taking care of the trail themselves. So it's a way to involve the users of the trail in keeping that trail in good condition. So they're stepping up, and I said this before, as hikers, if we're out there hiking, those trails don't just appear out of nowhere. Someone puts some blood, sweat, tears, money, all of that into a trail.
Yeah.
So I think as hikers, we need to pay it back, right? Like we need to, if we're using those trails, then maybe we should step up. Maybe we should step up to volunteer. Maybe we need to help with trail maintenance days. Maybe we need to donate money. Maybe we need to, do our part to keep those trails that we use so often, to keep them in shape, or at least to do no harm. And so this trail stewardship program sounds to me like a really great way that doesn't involve a whole lot of money, right? Like it's, sure, you're going to get trail impacts, but at least it's sort of person to person. It's individuals taking responsibility for their own behavior and being leaders and demonstrating to others how they can and should use the trail. So I think that's a really great idea. In addition to saying, "Hey, government, give us more money."
So one of the that and I think the Nova Scotia Trails Builder Network is going to be an important part in the future. I see a lot of potential there. And so you might down the road it might be part of the Hikers Summit or whatever, but it could be a place where they can learn too.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
people, and there's enough expertise out there, I think. Maybe there isn't, but I think there's, Garnet, and there's lots of trail builders. What's the guy down in Earltown there, that the Cape to Cape one?
Oh yes, the Cape to Cape. Well, there's Cape to Cape, which is it's more towards Pictou County area, but there's the Cobequid Eco Trail Society,
Okay.
and so they've got a group of folks that are actually they're going to be running one of our first in-person workshops. So what
Okay.
you were saying, there's a lot of knowledge and skill already in the province. Well,
Yeah.
a lot of, we thought when we first came up with this idea of the Trail Builders Network, initially I was thinking, oh yes, we can hire a trail consulting expert who can run a how to build a trail or how to maintain a trail workshop for people. And then you look at how expensive that can be, and you look at the logistics. And then discussing with a board member, she said, well, a lot of our trail groups already are pretty much experts on this. They've been doing trail building and maintenance for years.
Yeah.
So why don't we get them to teach each other? And so with that idea, we went to Cobequid Eco Trail Society, Sheila Wilson, and ran the idea by her. And she said, well, we're going to be replacing a bridge in the Gully Lake Trail system, and that's going to be in mid-September. And so, will that work? I'm like, yeah, I think there'll be probably lots of folks in the trail building community who maybe haven't replaced or built a bridge yet, and that would be an excellent learning opportunity. So not only are they going to just put a general call out for volunteers, but we're going to specifically bring trail builders together so that they can go and help with that. Also, I'm sure there'll be lots of questioning about, okay, how did you do water management on this section of your trail, or how did you address this particular issue with trail erosion or whatever it might be. So really, I think end up being a really rich learning experience. So that's going to be September 17th
Okay.
in Earltown.
So one of the things that people may not be aware of, that anytime you build a bridge over a stream, you got to have Department of Environment approval. And that's
Yes.
not very easy. It took Ishaban almost a year, and that was DNR trying to get permission from the environment.
Mm-hmm.
They ended
Yes.
up going with a steel bridge instead of a wooden bridge.
Yeah.
Now,
Well,
not
in
many
the
groups.
Earltown area, that is provincial protected, a protected area as well.
Mhm.
And so this is, I believe, a redecking of the bridge, and they've already got all their approvals and all of that.
Okay.
In place. But yeah, that when it is a protected area, you have a whole other layer of complication that goes with it, a whole other level of approval. And you gotta give those groups extra credit for hanging in there and jumping through all those hoops, because
That's right.
it's no small task.
So back, I think it was in the 80s, my department hosted the Victoria County Recreation and Tourism Department. We hosted the Provincial Trails Symposium at the Gaelic College.
Mm-hmm.
And out of that came a manual on trails. I would think this is probably a perfect opportunity, especially now that you got your builders network up, is to see what role the province is going to play in helping us with trail maintenance.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think there's information out there. For example, if you had a 10-car parking lot for a trail,
Mm-hmm.
There must be some standards out there to say, okay, this is how many people you can have on your trail.
Hmm.
If you go over this limit and you build your parking lot to double it, which so many of the groups are doing, they're doubling the size of the parking lot, but don't understand the maintenance impact.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there
Well,
is a move afoot to update the trail manual,
yeah,
and government is involved in that.
okay.
Um, and there are funding programs out there, and there's almost always a requirement for you to bring 50% of the funding to the table. So where are you going to get that extra, the other half of the money other than government? And so, parking lots and just general maintenance, sure, that's all part of what you can apply for, but it is an extra, I think that's an extra burden that especially trail groups, to some degree municipalities and provincial parks and not and federal, national parks have to consider too. But it's harder, I think, for community trail groups to get their heads around, oh gosh, we need a bigger parking lot. Okay, we're barely able to maintain our trail as it is.
Yeah,
And now we have to try to figure out how to get a bigger parking lot, maintain it. Do we
yeah,
need other amenities? If you have a parking lot, well, now do you need a pit toilet? Like, how are you going to handle that? So it's
yeah.
it's an extra burden.
Yeah, I agree with you on that, but I'm just saying the manual part could help them understand. Here's the maintenance impact when you all of a sudden
Yes.
made your trail wider, or you made your parking lot bigger, or if
Yes.
we're having more events next year,
Yes.
is what's the carrying capacity? How many hikers can actually be on a trail
Hmm.
at what standard? Because I believe the shared strategy for trails
Hmm.
is supposed, I thought they were looking at standards.
Yeah, so that is related to the trail, like updating the trail manual, because that
Okay.
that trail manual I don't think has been updated for quite some time. It's still got relevant, good information in it from what I understand, but yeah, it is on the laundry list of things to do for the province and trail stakeholders.
So is that
Uh,
a 5-year deal or a 10-year deal?
that's a that's a good question. I don't know. But that is something that groups have to consider. Build it and they will come. So if you have a certain size parking lot and then you're making it bigger, you will likely see more people and more impact on your trails. So that will
Right.
that will mean your budget for maintenance will likely have to get bigger.
Some do, some don't.
Mm.
But I think just to be able to make people aware of
Hmm.
the implications, because I'm not hearing, I don't know if it's still a big deal now, but in the old days, Parks Canada used to be really big on environmental assessments.
Hmm.
Now they're really big. What's the numbers?
Mm. Yeah.
They're missing the most important part, the environmental assessment.
Mhm.
For example, they don't really tell you that there's more bears now than there is moose.
Mm. Well, bears. Yes, that's
Yeah,
another.
so I mean, it's whatever. But anyway, so my next question is, um, what has Hike Nova Scotia learned from this year's hiking summit in terms of any trends for the future or where to look at things that they may want to do?
Mm. Um, Gosh, I mean, yeah, there's a lot to take from the summit. But it was interesting to see that we had a session on how to form a hiking group or club, and we
Yes.
got a really decent number, a good number of people coming up to that.
Yeah.
So that was interesting, and so we thought, oh, okay, and we thought the session went really well, and so we've decided to do a webinar on that in early October,
Okay.
and we're getting people registering already for that. We've barely done any promotion around it. So I think one of the trends is that people want to be more organized and they want to create their own groups. But they want to do their groups in different ways. Like there's different tolerances to how organized they want to be. Some just want to, they don't want to form a, a nonprofit organization and, become a Shabakto hiking club, because Shabakto hiking club is a big, mainly Halifax based group. They hike all over the province, but they are a nonprofit of their own, very active. And that's one level of organization. And then you get the Fundy Erratics, which isn't a formal organization. They have a very active Facebook page or group. They're supported by the municipality to some degree. And so they have a certain level of organization. And then, you get other groups. You've got the Volksmarch clubs. You get groups like the Lunenburg County Hikers and Lay Hiker in based at a Shetty Camp area. And so you've got all these different ways that you can organize around hiking. And it's interesting to see what people are gravitating towards. It looks like we're going to see a few more formalized groups, but the meetup groups are just proliferating. Like they come and go. They're very informal, but meetup hiking groups are all over the place.
Yeah. So, one of the things that we've certainly learned over our last 19 years is that when you organize events, you got to have insurance.
Mm-hmm.
And that's that component that a lot of the hiking clubs, new or old, will say, yeah, I don't know if we want to be that organized. And I'm thinking, well, if you're doing an event in National Park, you gotta have insurance policy or have a really good waiver system.
Yeah.
So those are some components. I think that webinar would be a good little learning lesson for a lot of the groups. It's like we started out that way, but we didn't end that way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Unfortunately, liability and insurance, it's sort of that necessary evil, and it can really put a damper on people just getting out and having fun, going for a hike. But again, if you go the more informal route of a meetup group, it's the common adventurer. You don't have the real formal leader or group that is the official organizer. Everyone just agrees that they're going to come together in a certain place at a certain time, take responsibility for themselves, and then get together and hike. But there is something to be said for having more organization than that, because when you get people coming out really regularly and you get people coming out in certain numbers, you kind of want your ducks in a row as far as like, what is our emergency plan? What if something bad happens? What if? And if you don't have those what ifs covered, an organization being more organized helps you cover all of those what ifs. And so there's pluses and minuses to both, right?
Yeah, because I remember when we started cross-country skiing in Victoria County, we helped start up a lot of cross-country ski clubs, which then became a little more organized, then became part of Nordic Ski Nova Scotia, and required insurance, and they had different programs and stuff. So it became really organized and stuff that almost a lot of them said, we didn't really want to do this, because they were doing just what you said. Well, every Sunday afternoon at 2:00, we're going to have a little afternoon ski, and come back and have a little lunch and a cup of tea and chat with people that you skied with, and that's it. Well, that's what we call an event. And then all of a sudden, it got bigger, bigger, bigger. That's the step. Sorry, that's the way we started with mountain biking too. Started out small. We had actually cross-country ski clubs because we used a lot of their trails. And then, everybody that's involved in the mountain bike series has to become a member of Bicycle Nova Scotia. Must have a card, show that you have insurance. And then, oh, by the way, now it's an event and you're racing, then you have to have a commissioner to supervise that event. And there's none in Cape Breton, so you had to go all the way from Halifax, and that cost you, there goes your profit for the day. Instead to bring somebody in from Halifax.
One of the beauties of the hiking world is that hikers are like, it's like herding cats. And so we're notoriously low on the organizational kind of bent. And I don't know that we'll ever get to that point where, we hike Nova Scotia, we thought about the idea, well, do we adopt a model similar to Bicycle Nova Scotia, where every hiking club kind of comes under our umbrella and there's the insurance and there's all of that. It just didn't feel right though. It just, because these groups, it didn't feel like, what is it our place as Hike Nova Scotia to say, hey, hiking group, you can't be a hiking group unless you're like under our umbrella. And there's too many that come and grow that are informal. They want to do their own thing. They want to do their thing in their own way. And it's I think it would just really put a damper on, I don't know, just people getting together and for a hike. I mean, there's only so you can only organize that so much. So we try to do things like a webinar on how do you form a hiking group, or we'll give advice around insurance, but trying to control it too much and bring it under our umbrella is just, at this point anyway,
Yeah.
it doesn't feel right. Maybe at some point in the future it will get to that point. I don't see it anytime soon. We just want people to get out there and hike. So
Yeah.
organized, informal, whatever.
That's the way our group started too. But then, one thing led to another. When the hiker got killed by a coyote in the national park, we had to change safety standards again. On behalf of Hike the Highlands Festival, we'd like to thank you for your presentation today and for giving us an update on what's new and exciting with Hike Nova Scotia and hiking, in Nova Scotia. I look forward to the many new developments coming out of the Nova Scotia Trail Builders Network, and continue to work with you guys on hiking Nova Scotia.
Well, thank you. Thanks for hosting Hike Nova Scotia. And I wish everyone luck on the trails for this year's Hike the Highlands Festival. I'll be hiking with you virtually. It's our busy time as well for Hike Nova Scotia, so I'll be stuck in Halifax for the first part of September. So I won't be there personally, but I'll be there in my heart with you. And I was there for about a week or so in August.
Yes.
I was in Cape Breton enjoying the trails, and yeah, Cape Breton is, I always tell people Cape Breton is the hiking mecca of Nova Scotia, and it is.
I agree.
Of course, Cape Bretoners are slightly biased, aren't we?
Well, that's true. Yeah, so thanks again for your presentation, and we'll chat again in the near future.
Great, thanks.